cares about the people in it. So let's bring up now, give him a warm welcome, Peter. Let's bring it up, give a warm welcome for Peter Diabrowska. Come on up, Pete.
How's it going, everybody? Thank you for being here. I definitely want to thank National File for putting this together, as well as Alex Jones. Similar to Millie Weaver, Alex Jones had a huge part in waking me up and turning me into a political person, which I wasn't for most of my life before a few years ago, and it's been a wild journey since then. So in case you don't know me, I'm a reporter. I'm a political operative. I'm the guy who went on Tucker Carlson and windmill dunked on Conservative Inc. And then subsequently got booted off the ballot in a congressional race because the GOP and the State Board of Elections were not happy with me. So that was kind of a bummer, but I'm here to continue to purvey the message that I did on Tucker Carlson, which I think is very important. So the biggest issue that we face in the Conservative Party, or in the Republican Party, I should say, is that we don't have any real thinking people. There are no purveyors of actual ideas in the Conservative Party. Does anybody actually think in this room that Rick Wilson or Bill Kristol or Matt Schlapp really represent what conservatism is or our ideas? Because I don't. We have a common...
globalist shills.
Exactly, exactly. We have a commentariat in America. We have a punditry class that is absolutely mediocre. It has never had an original thought in its life. Consequently, what the conservative movement is lacking are new ideas. Ideas for the 21st century for conservatism, not Cold War, Republican versus Democrat ideas. So the GOP, which should be called the GDP, because that's all it cares about, not ordinary Americans, not the people they claim to represent, simply reacts to whatever the left is doing. It doesn't put forth any new ideas and then fight for those new ideas. It just scolds and lectures and says, hey, we probably shouldn't do that. That's not a good idea. The perfect example is socialism, the great boogeyman, right? The only thing that the Republican Party does is when the left elects a far left socialist congresswoman or puts up a socialist for president, is say socialism is bad. And it's like, well, what are you accomplishing, right? And then the National Review writes a think piece on how socialism is bad. The Daily Wire writes a think piece on how socialism is bad. Whatever dumb news website Bill Kristol started writes a think piece about how socialism is bad. And then they all go on Twitter and circle up with people who only follow them and whom they only follow, right? And they talk about how socialism is bad. And it's like, what are we actually accomplishing here? We're not doing anything. We're simply reacting to what the left has to say, and we're not putting forth any new America First ideas for the 21st century. All of our esteemed thinkers then go to college campuses, and this is my favorite charade that they do. And during the Q&A at their events, people like Charlie Kirk will destroy the 19-year-old feminist lesbian with blue hair and claim that as this gigantic win for conservatism. It's a sad and pathetic shtick that's been done over and over and over again by people who work in politics for a living against kids who are just developing political ideologies. It's overplayed, and it's not, frankly, worth the time anymore. This is what passes for our intellectual discourse in 2020, and it's not getting us anywhere. It's awful. So go to CPAC, which I'm sure most of you are going to do this week, and you're going to see that the main theme of the conference is that socialism is bad and capitalism is good. But that's not really the main issue that we face, is it? The main issue that we face, to anybody who's actually thinking or actually using their minds, is mass migration. And I'm talking legal and illegal immigration when I say mass migration. That is the biggest problem facing America by far, bar none. Now, at the risk of giving these people too much credit, Matt Schlapp and Ben Shapiro and Rick Wilson and Bill Kristol likely understand that the biggest threat that we face is mass immigration. Consider this for a minute. 75% of immigrants who vote for Democrats. So when Texas goes blue, and when Arizona goes blue, and when North Carolina goes blue, and when Ohio goes blue, and Pennsylvania and Florida and so on and so forth, mass legal immigration will be the cause of that. Yet nobody is talking about it. So really, whatever issues they are going to talk about at CPAC this week, which is mostly going to be socialism bad, capitalism good, they don't really matter, do they? Right? All that matters is that in 20 years from now, and probably less, we are going to be totally non-existent as a party because we will have been replaced by foreigners who vote against our interests. Yet, if you look at the CPAC lineup, there's not one person there who is a serious commentator on immigration. I wonder why that might be. So, if you don't like socialism, too bad, because you're going to get it. Here are some facts that I want to talk about that our esteemed conservative thought leaders never talk about. Nonetheless, these facts do not care about Ben Shapiro's feelings, though I believe he is upset about them. So, do you want to keep your guns in America? I do. But if you do, I'm sorry, because 77% of Asians, according to Pew Research, which is like the gold standard of research, believe in gun control. A full 70% of Hispanics believe in gun control. They want to take your guns away, too. Those two groups are the largest groups of people that we're bringing into this country by far en masse. It's not even close. Do you guys enjoy the First Amendment? I mean, that's why we're all here today, right? We like the First Amendment? It's good. That's really good. But unfortunately, I can't help you because according to Cato, 72% of Hispanics, A, believe that hate speech exists, which is stupid in itself, and 2, believe that hate speech is an actual act of violence. And what do you do with acts of violence? You make them illegal, right? You get thrown in jail. The force of the government will be brought against you for hate speech when we are replaced by foreigners, which is what is happening. 62% of Hispanics actually admitted to not respecting others' rights to freedom of speech. So I'm looking forward to the new America. I don't know about you guys. Now, the GOP the GOP establishment won't discuss mass migration for the obvious reason, right, which is money. Their business interests and corporate donors make big bucks off the cheap labor racket. Matt Schlapp is the perfect example of this, literally. So Matt Schlapp owns a lobbying firm. It's called Cove Strategies. It made $1.3 million in 2018 during the era of President Trump, which is when we're supposed to be ending mass migration to the United States. One of Matt Schlapp's biggest clients of his lobbying firm is an organization called the Seasonal Employment Alliance. It's a group that's dedicated to increasing the number of H-2B low-skilled visas to the United States, through which foreigners are taking jobs from working-class Americans, from teenagers during the summer, from ordinary Americans who may not have bought into the doctrine of going to college. Michelle Malkin, who spoke at CPAC last year, exposed Matt Schlapp's H-2B racket in her book, Open Borders, Inc. Subsequently, she was not invited to speak at CPAC this year. I wonder why. So look, I've done a lot of bitching so far, but if nobody else is going to actually think about or present or discuss any 21st century conservative ideas, then I think it's incumbent upon us to do that. And so I have some thoughts about some of the issues that we should actually be talking about. The first one, if you guys are familiar with me, you know this is my big issue, is an immigration moratorium. We have to implement a total moratorium on immigration. That means no net migration, zero net migration to the United States every year. Precisely, and for half of the 20th century, we had an immigration moratorium in this country, right? But I mean, actually, this is a good point. As early as, or as late as, I guess I should say, 2003, Tom Tancredo in the House proposed a bill for an immigration moratorium. Nobody called him a white nationalist because the media wasn't insane back then. It is now. It wasn't as insane as it is now, right? So, look, if we were to implement an immigration moratorium, that would immediately halt the demographic changes that the GOP is hell-bent on allowing to kill them, right, at the voting booth. It would also help working-class Americans. We're not at full employment but Congress is clamoring for more H-2B visas. That doesn't make any sense. We've long confused a labor shortage with a tightening of the labor market. So we do have a tightening of the labor market. We do not have a labor shortage. That is total nonsense. It's hokum. Whenever you see that pushed by politicians, look at the agenda behind it. Americans, and this is the really sort of disappointing part, increasingly Americans with college degrees, Americans looking for high-skilled jobs, particularly in the tech industry, are seeing themselves be replaced with foreigners as well. Walgreens just like reportedly laid off 900 IT workers. Who do you think they're going to be replaced with? Like low-skilled labor from places like India and China, where people will work for longer hours and for less money. This is what's happening to kids who go get college degrees, which brings me to my next point, which is that we have to talk about student debt in this country. We have to, as conservatives. It is incumbent upon us. So, corporate billionaires hire multi-million-dollar lobbyists to set policies in America, and one of those policies is the continued debt of American students. I'm not calling for the taxpayer to bear this burden. They've got enough on their plate. But the bottom line on student loans is this: student loans are a fraud when we are importing the competition of the borrower. They're also a fraud because one side bears all the risk and the other side is guaranteed all of the reward. Excuse me. Can you define fraud better than that? I can't. Not to mention, like, it's a predatory lending scheme. It pales in comparison to what happened in 2008, the housing crisis. American kids are propagandized for 18 years in government schools by the government itself to say college is the end-all be-all. You have to go to college. If you do not go to college, you will not be successful. You will stay dumb and unenlightened like your parents are who live back home, and it is absolutely terrible. Okay, I'm gonna do that. I'm almost done. I promise.
Oh, you're good. They're just gonna kick us out here at 10. We got a bunch of those speakers. You're kicking ass, man.
All right, gotcha.
I love you. I had you on the show. You're awesome.
All right.
Good guy.
All right, look. A few more things we should be thinking about as conservatives, and then I'm done. Pronatal policies, student debt, canceling that is one of them, by the way. Actually dismantling the administrative state would be another, by remote work nationalism. Let's send all the people home from Washington, D.C., let them work from home. And ending the forever wars in the Middle East, obviously. We're tired of paying for these. What's the objective? How long are we going to be there? And how much money is it going to cost?
Peter Brodsky, you kicked ass. Good to hear, brother. Appreciate you, man. All right, more folks are coming in. And we love you being here. But I want to say something, and I agree with what he's saying about the numbers. He's right. The globalists have bet on the third world that they've exploited and enslaved to bring in as leftists who the Democrats skim off the top and control them as a permanent underclass. We love people from India, Mexico, Eastern Europe, wherever, but they're being used as a tool to destroy our American republic, and so we have a right. Water is a wonderful thing, but if a dam breaks and it floods your town, it's a bad thing. And so we love our fellow humans. We want a Promethean future, but he's right. The globalists are using uncontrolled immigration as a weapon, as a giant sucking sound, like the late, great patriot from Texas, Ross Perot, said, to lower our wages. And we see it as a weapon, and we resist it. Yeah!